Well, hi, I'm Brian Redmond. I'm Curator of Archaeology at the Cleveland Museum of Natural History. So what is an archaeologist? Well, an archaeologist is a scientist who studies the past, but specifically studies the human past. And more specifically, we study past human cultures, people that lived hundreds to thousands of years ago. Now at the museum, I pretty much study prehistoric Native Americans, or Native Americans that lived here at least 500 years ago, and as far back as about 13,000 years ago. Well, growing up, I was always interested in studying the past. I liked history. I also liked the earth sciences, geology, learning about the environment. And when I was deciding late in high school what to do in college, what to major in, I thought a good combination would be to study anthropology. And then I quickly learned that archaeology is actually one subfield, one branch of anthropology. So when I entered college, I went in as an anthropology major, but really focused very quickly on archaeology. Well, as a curator, part of my job is to take care of the collections of artifacts. That's what curator means. It means caretaker. But also I do research. I go out in the field, I do archaeological excavations, mostly in northern Ohio. And again, we study the prehistoric native cultures that lived in this area. I also work in my lab studying the artifacts that we excavated. We photograph them, we write reports about the information we get from them, and we learn quite a bit about the past just by looking at the artifacts, what we call the material culture of past people living in Ohio. So we need to study the past by looking at what they left behind, and in most cases those are artifacts. Stone tools, pottery remains, animal bone, a whole range of things, including buildings in some cases. If you work in Egypt or other places around the world where you have stone constructions, you can learn quite a bit about past cultures. Here I have some examples of the kinds of prehistoric artifacts that we find in Ohio. This is a pottery sherd. This is a piece of a clay cooking pot. It was probably made about 1,000 years ago. The particular form of it, how it was made, and even the decoration that's incised on the outside tells us something about the age and also where it was made and eventually left behind for archaeologists to find. This particular piece was from southwest Ohio, from what's called the Fort Ancient culture. I also have a flint tool. This is a knife blade or maybe a spear point. Again, by the shape of it and the form, we're able to tell something about the age of it and possibly where it came from originally. Now we know this piece was found in northern Ohio because we have a good record of that. Here's another kind of stone tool. This is in a category we call ground stone because they weren't flaked out of flint. These were carefully chipped and polished into the form you see here. Now this is a stone axe. It's what we call a celt, C-E-L-T. It's basically just a stone axe. It was used for all different kinds of woodworking. We can tell it by looking at the worked edge of it. It has a nice, sharp, narrow bit on it. And really it's kind of like, very much like steel axes that we still use today to cut wood and to work wood in many different ways. This particular object probably was about 1,000 years old and was found in northeast Ohio. And sometimes we actually find the remains of their houses. Not as clay floors in most cases, but usually as stains left in the ground from wooden posts that were set up to build structures, even to build stockade fences, like the fences that were built around the villages during times of warfare. So Ohio has a rich legacy and a very varied legacy of prehistoric remains. And archaeologists at the museum study pretty much all the time periods to learn a lot about the past. Well, if you're interested in archaeology, there's a number of things you can do. One is to do well in school, get good grades, particularly in the sciences, but also study the past, like in history classes. Learn as much as you can about the past in general in any part of the world you're interested in. Also, there's very more specific information available about archaeology in different areas. Our museum website has some really good information about the projects we do in northern Ohio, about what we find, and some of our interpretations about the past. Also, our museum has exhibits about archaeology and Ohio prehistory that might be interesting as well. Whatever you decide to do, pursue it, work hard at it, and don't be afraid to try and follow your dreams.